It's really hard to nail a horror anthology movie. That being said, VHS 94 may just be the best one in the series. What is up, big fans? Welcome back to my channel. I was able to check out VHS 94, the brand new entry in the VHS series, and this movie is premiering on Shudder, and I believe other places on the 6th. So I need you guys down below. Were you looking forward to this film? What worked? What didn't work? And you ready to be scared? Let's talk about it. So, a mysterious VHS tape leads a police SWAT team to the discovery of a sinister cult whose collection of pre-recorded material reveals a nightmarish conspiracy. And there's an interweaving plot and one of the, I believe, 5 storylines that kind of connects it all together. But really, it's an anthology at its core, so we get all of these different stories combined into one straight-up 90s looking and feeling and atmosphere-wise movie that just does something that we haven't really seen in a while on the big/small screen. And that is bring together a handful of genres in what is perceived to be a cheesy horror film on its surface, but once we dive into each of these stories, we get to see a plethora of visual, both practical and CGI'd effects, but also compelling stories. Maybe not the most character depth you've ever seen in a horror movie, but compelling stories that will have you on the edge of your seat. Now, in terms of what I mentioned earlier, is it the scariest of the VHS movies? Not necessarily. We're more kind of blown away by the visuals that we're getting rather than seeing jump scares galore and a plethora of things that we may expect in a movie like this. But what blew me away about this film is the combination of different visual effects that we get in each of these stories, and we may as well talk about those stories right now. So we have stories by the names of Holy Hell, Storm Drain, The Empty Wake, The Subject, and Terror. We also get a great commercial in the midst of a couple of these stories talking about this veggie masher, and it reminded me of like in WandaVision when we would get a commercial that had a deeper meaning to it. The veggie masher commercial was fantastic, and it kind of breaks that tension up. It's a very tense movie, and each story is filled with something that I believe is going to take you and move you in a different way, whether it be unnerve you, make you feel a bit panicked. I believe The Empty Wake may be one of the best examples of this, when you have a mortician who is tasked with managing a wake on this really dark and creepy night. So it's basically just this person and this body, and all of a sudden the body begins to make noises. This is one of those stories that made me actually think of the video game The Last of Us, just the way it unnerves you, and you get the lights going out and just hearing the noise of the body. And again, the use of practical effects, not only in this segment, but all of the segments. Another great example is the Storm Drain, which may actually be my favorite story. This reporter is tracking down this legend of the Rat Man, where she encounters people in the sewers that have very interesting things about them that you will learn when you watch the movie. But the way that this story progresses out of the sewer and into everyday life, there's a news segment at the end of this particular story that just the way that it all happens is absolutely insane. And that's what I can say about this movie as a whole. VHS 94 is insane in the way that it's constructed. Now, did every story nail it? Not necessarily. Holy Hell, while it may be the most important of the bunch, this is the one that kind of ties everything together. That, along with another one called The Subject, stood out as maybe the most flawed of the bunch, because I just wasn't as engaged in Holy Hell. And while the story itself is interesting, this is one that takes the look of the other ones, that pure 90s VHS, obviously the name of the movie, that look, and kind of does away with it in certain segments. So I was a little thrown off with the why it does that, because it was working so well for the rest of them. But for the most part, the stories themselves, while they may not be the most well-written things ever, they are at least engaging, and they utilize the best part about this movie as a whole, the visuals. Oh my God, some of the best practical effects, well, at least recently, right? The cinematography, the way that you utilize a flash on a camera and it kind of spotlights the individual subject. You have the camera itself glitching out, getting that blue kind of shining through the VHS look of it all. The fact that they commits so heavily, other than that one story that kind of does away with that, commits so heavily to that 90s look. It makes you feel like you are there in 1994, which I technically wasn't. I was born in 95, but the 90s are a time that everyone likes to revisit in film, and I believe VHS 94 not only captures the time period through certain story elements, but also through those visuals that just work so well. And you know, oftentimes in a horror movie, especially like this, I'm not the biggest fan of shaky cam and really camera movement in general that is so sporadic. And I have seen the first VHS more recently, and kind of comparing the two movies in terms of the visuals, I actually think this one is handled better. It feels like there's more of a meticulous sense of care when it comes to the visuals. Now, the story or the stories themselves, they may not be as cohesive as the first VHS, but I believe they go more bombastic with them, and that's what kind of gets me intrigued with a movie like this. And again, just the creature design in general, all throughout this series of movies is so well handled, and even with the story flaws and things that I just wasn't completely on board with because they're either too predictable or they don't get you engaged enough in the characters, you can overlook that with its pure sense of knowing how crazy it is and that style that locked me in. And this is all completely unexpected because I did not expect much from VHS 94. Even though I was really excited for it, I thought, you know, this is one of those that has a really high chance of disappointing me. But I was actually really surprised with this movie, and I was surprised with the fact that it handled all of these things with such care, and some of these huge surprises within the different stories shocked me to my core. Again, we're not dealing as much with jump scares here, but the imagery as a whole is what will get you completely on board. A wild movie, a movie that serves its purpose, and VHS 94, one of the biggest surprises of the year for me. I had a genuinely good time watching this movie. Before I give you guys my score, are you watching VHS 94 on Shudder this week? Let me know your thoughts on this series as a whole down below. And if you like this review, be sure to drop your thumbs up. These 5 stories will shock you to your core. While some may not work as well as others, the end result is one that horror fans cannot miss. I'm going a 70% with my score. I enjoyed it. I think it is a good horror movie, one that is bombastic in nature, so if you don't like movies that are this far over the top, you may not like this one, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you guys so much for watching. What is your favorite movie to come on Shudder over the past few years? You're the best. I'll see you soon.